Hey Neppers, it's me, Wild Neptune. It's a little bit late, but I want to go over the current solo raid boss, Luxurious Spider, what it does, and what strategies you can do to conquer this Arcanid menace. Let's get started. So the boss is fire weak, that means you want to bring at least one fire unit to the fight. You need 5 teams, so there's going to be a lot of pausing and unpausing, so a little bit of jank will be going on in the fight, but hopefully I can explain it to you as best as possible. So let's start the fight right here. So right off at the first, it will spawn an egg sac near the bottom right here. And you want to try to kill this whenever it appears, because not doing so is a damage loss. Also, it'll spawn some little like spider mobs that you also have to try to take out. So better to kill it if you can. If you can't, not the end of the world, but definitely something you do want to try to do. After that, it will have a brief time we want to do some damage, and you'll see right there before there are 2 mechanics, 2 like smaller mechanics. Mostly the time they can be ignored, but there'll be a exclamation point on the character's HUD, not the HUD, on the portrait, where it means that the boss will be shooting like a laser, which will do a small to moderate amount of damage to you. And then also a suppression machine gun type fire, which will slowly chip away at the Nikke's health also. These 2 attacks don't do a ton of damage. If they target the same Nikke too many times though, it can be a little bit of a problem, but most of the time, for most meta teams, it can just simply be ignored. Unlike Land Eater, this boss does not dish out a large amount of damage outside of its like mechanical QTE like wipe or heavy damage attacks that it does. So most of the time you can just keep firing. If you do not have any sustain on your teams, you might have to go to manual control on those characters that are being targeted and just have them not fire for a little bit, unfortunately. Yes, it'll be a DPS loss, but it is more of a DPS loss if your character dies. It'll spawn these missiles here, and will also start a QTE pattern right after the missiles are being fired. So the QTE pattern, this first one, will go into an M pattern, which you'll see, I say M, an N pattern, which you'll see when we complete it. And you actually have time, if you are fast enough, to complete it before these missiles actually get to you. So you can complete the QTE and then quickly snap over to the usually the top left all the way down and take care of the missiles before they really become a problem. Now, in some cases, you will want to actually delay completing the QTE in order to try to build up a little more burst gauge. And we'll get to why in a little bit here as we go over the next mechanic. But anyway, let's keep going right here. So right here, we down the boss, and we push up some damage here. And right after this point, you see the boss gets an immune shield. So this shield, it can only be pierced by, I guess, piercing, or by a fire element Nikke. So like you could go here or Makoto on the other side. At the same time, you might have seen the boss spawn some ads on both sides. So these ads, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your view of things, are not HP based, they are hit count based, which means things like machine guns or anything that fires really rapidly will clear them out a lot faster. Also, things like distributed damage basically wipes them out almost right away. The way the boss and some of the timing lines up, a lot of the times Yukiko and Makoto, when they'll burst right as they're appearing, and will basically instantly wipe them all out at the same time. They function a lot like the Mother Whale ads, where there is a very small window where you can kind of snipe them out and kill them basically right away before they fully get their full hit count kind of quote-unquote shield thing that they have. You can also kind of a gimmick, but if you set your display to 21.9, you can actually see where they appear from much earlier. honestly think this is kind of lame, so I'm not going to do that, but you can do that if you want to. So right there, we'll kill those ads. If you don't kill the ads, it will have basically a screen-wide laser attack, which you can cover from and survive. So it's not a wipe, but it will destroy all of your shields. If you have a taunter, however, like say Moron, where the taunt is active, it will only hit that one character. I also believe the attack can technically be iframed, because I did it once before on accident, I think. Don't quite quote me on that, but I have managed to get out of the actual laser without taking any damage at all. So there is that. Anyway, next up, we will have a full screen QTE, and this is where some people will want to actually delay before in the last QTE to have a burst up for this one. If you do want to burst for this one, you normally want to try to burst between when the actual screen started to fade, but after you destroy all the other mobs and the shield is up and the boss comes back up. So in that little window right there is typically when you want to burst. Now, there are actually two reasons why you would want to burst at that point. The first one is to just make doing this QTE a little bit easier. The timer for this QTE is actually pretty tight, and unfortunately, if you have to reload during it with the character you're shooting with, you pretty much fail automatically. So another thing you might want to keep track of is making sure the character that you're using in order to clear it has enough ammo to do so. The second reason why you might want to delay your burst is that you do get a small damage increase if you can burst with the wide area attack, like say with a Snow White Heavy Arms or a Cinderella, something like that, right before the boss goes into the black screen, because that does mean you will be able to fill up a little bit of burst gauge while that is happening, and you also get the majority of your upfront damage by doing that burst at this time too. Anyway, the actual mechanics of this full screen is it'll spawn two reticules, like right there, and you'll want to kind of try to hit both of them at the same time, right there. Now, we did a kind of a bad job there, but that is basically how it goes. It will pop back up, and as it pops up, it'll spawn its second egg sac, and you want to try to get rid of that, like the last one, so there we go. And we will keep on going. It will fire its missiles again, and once again, you will not really have to worry about them sometimes, but just keep going and they will appear, and when they get too close, you can just kind of sweep up like that and try to take them out. See, the crown is being targeted by the laser attack, but again, right now, we really don't care about that too much here, so we will keep on going and just keep pushing some damage into the boss. The heal from the Yukiko will keep me alive pretty substantially. Now here, it will do a set of these next, another QTE, and it will have things in a circle. Basically, you can just kind of do like a circle motion around them to clear them out. Now, you do have a second or so to clear it, so if you want, again, delay your burst here, or another set of mobs that will appear again after this set, you can do that. Keep in mind too that wide area rocket launchers and things like, again, Snow White Heavy Arms will clear this if you are close enough, if they feel close enough to like the boss. So if you are just firing at the boss and you don't really want to move your cursor to lose DPS, that small amount of DPS, you can just do that in those cases there. But we will just do this here like normal. So right there, 1, and then 2, here we go, 3, we kind of missed that one right there, and then we'll go into another down state, like I said, and the ants will be spawning a little bit after this. And once again, if you want to, you can snap over here to try to take them out to make your life a little bit easier, and you will take out this thing here. So right here, it will spawn the final egg sac right here. And this egg sac right here that spawns is actually the hardest one to kill because it spawns a lot faster than the other one, and also it spawns directly after the ad phase, where you probably use your burst during that ad phase, and you might not have it for the sack right there. That's why some teams will delay killing the ads right here a tiny bit to try to build up more burst. Another strategy too is that sometimes players will purposely fail this particular ad and just try to keep damage onto the boss in order to get enough time to build the burst, in order to try to get the burst in order to kill the egg sac instead. Now doing it the first way is better. So if you can just delay it a little bit and then kill the last ad and not get the laser, that's preferably what you want to do. On this team, the damage is high enough where it doesn't really matter if I have the burst or not. But on some other teams, definitely the window is much, much tighter. Some more lasers are going out right here. And you see, unfortunately, it was targeting the Makoto a couple of times in a row, but it's perfectly fine again because we have the healing and we also have Crown on this team. So it will do one more QTE, and you'll see here these white circles or gray circles will appear, and this is the order that the QTE will be appearing in. Now, out of every single QTE in the game that's not the screen wide blackout one, this one is actually the most difficult because you seem to have the least amount of time to do this. And in a lot of cases, I found that this is where some of my teams, the ammo hasn't really worked out quite as well, quite as cleanly. So anyways, we'll go over right here, and you'll see they appear this way. So again, they'll appear in sets of 3, like right here. If you have a rocket launcher or something like that, sometimes this flash damage will appear and go right there. And here we go. Just try to do a small circle motion, a tight circle motion. You'll go into another down state for the boss. The shield will pop up right here. Now you have 2 options here. The first option is to ignore the ads and just try to do damage to the boss. The other option is to kill the ads. Really, if you have a lot of fire DPS right here that can't kill the ads quickly, it's better just to put damage into the boss instead of trying to take out the ads. However, because after killing the ads, the boss gets up and transitions into its next stage a little bit faster. If you only have maybe one big fire DPS and you can kill the ads relatively quickly, it's probably better just to kill them as fast as you can and then switch right to the boss. And that's basically the last real big mechanic that the boss has. The other only mechanic now is that the boss will be continually firing these missiles now up top. So right here, you'll see all in firing, and it will be continually firing basically the whole time. There's a consistent barrage. So with teams like this, which has a bunch of fast firers, it doesn't really matter that much. However, on some teams where the number of shots you have might be more limited, it can be a little bit of a problem, but there you go. Just do it like that, only probably a little bit better. Now, as for teams go, if you want to, you can always check the raid rankings, and you can go and click on any of the teams here, players here, and you see their setup and what they use. Obviously, depending on where you are in the game, you might or might not be able to do some of these teams overall. Like, I know I can do all of them. And obviously, too, most of the people on the leaderboard here will have a full battalion of max limit broken Nikkes and everything like that, like max core Nikkes and stuff. So some of the strategies they use, not quite copyable by everybody, but it should give you some good starting points of what you can do. Now, the teams that I used personally, I'll go over them right here. The first one is going to be masked with the Persona duo. So there are basically 2 teams you can use the Persona units in, and both Persona units are used in this raid. One of them, I think the more popular one, will be with Yukiko and Makoto together, and the other one will be Makoto in a shotgun team. But I do think that this is the better one overall. Now, the variations that are being used in the solo raid are pretty varied actually, but this is one I came up with myself for the team. I mean, I didn't come up with it myself, but this is the one that I decided to go with, where you have the mask and the crown, which are going to be buffering right here. You have the siren to do some of the damage taken increase and stuff like that. So just a pretty good, straightforward, easy to use team overall. Next team is idols with, well, I guess the other retired idol in a niece, Raffy Redhood, and Privity. Now, Privity is interesting because she really only works with like Raffy Redhood and stuff like that, unfortunately. So, and this is because her burst decreases the ammo, so it makes using her with some other units a little bit harder. She also works in the Modernia team. However, that's a team that, even though technically it's being used, I can't recommend that you build it. My principle here, my thought was that the idols, they buff the explosion damage of a niece, and also Raffy Redhood has a small amount of explosion damage too, and the Privity does the damage increase, and also the screen wipe can take care of some of the missiles and stuff like that too. In this team in particular, it's actually better because of the timing of the mechanics to burst with Privity first over Raffy Redhood, just because of the way that the mechanics kind of line up. The next team was this kind of jank team. This, like, this is the team I put in. Like, you know what? I don't really know what to do, so here it is. We have Litter, we have Mahara Bond and Chain, we have Neo Neon, Helm, Treasure, and Nayuta. Nayuta is really good for taking up all the missiles, also some passive healing. Also, the Helm Treasure has some passive healing too, but also generates a lot of burst, which is pretty good for this team because this team has some of the worst burst generation in like the whole world, unfortunately. Neon and Mahara just do good damage overall, and then we have Leader, who, despite the fact that her cooldown reduction takes a couple of times to ramp up, does put in more overall damage for the entire support, overall support for damage for the team than both Rouge and Dekiller Wife. Also, Rouge and Dekiller Wife are both snipers, which means that they perform pretty poorly on the ad killing phase and stuff like that. The fourth team, this is the more standard one that a lot of people have been using. It is X-Brid, X-Diesel, Forward Treasure, Somewhat Heavy Arms, and Moron. This is one of the teams here where you will want to try to time your burst window to use No White Heavy Arms burst right before that Black String QTE. This is also the team that struggles the most with breaking that last egg sack. Unfortunately, maybe if some of my characters here were built a little bit better, it'd be easy for me. But personally, I have had a lot of issues breaking those egg sacks right there. The final team is Shotgun. And this is a team, honestly, I wish I did not have to use because it is clearly, for me at least, the worst team that I'm using right now. And this is mainly because of the sustain issue. So technically, what you want to do with the Shotgun team is try to burst with Exoline as little as possible. And that's basically it. And the main issue is that this team does require a little more microwing, where you might have to manually switch to a Nikke and cover them by not shooting, and then after the bosses make suppression fire, where the laser goes and hits the shield, keep firing again. So there is that. Arcana is definitely best in slot here, even though Nayuta might be a little bit easier to use. Arcana does actually do a pretty good amount of damage on this fight, so I think in most cases, if you have them both built and overloaded and stuff like that, using that unit over Arcana is a damage loss. Unfortunately, my Drake is not built very well either, so this is not a team, again, I'm thrilled about, but it is the best one that I've had. And then obviously, if you're newer, you will have to compromise a little bit on some of your teams, but just do the best that you can, because your ranking rewards is based on the final damage you do, and if you can make it to this stage right here and pass through stage 7, you do have to actually attempt the boss here to get the upgraded rewards. So go to reward info right here, so you see the end rewards, and your checkpoints are basically, for most players, going to be at 3%, which you'll get the 3 frame, and then again at 10%, where you will get the 2 frame. At 30%, you'll get the 1 frame, and again, in order to qualify for this, you will have to actually attempt challenge mode. And keep in mind too, to get the attempt in before the actual day ends, before the season ends. And keep in mind too that you do have to go through with all 5 teams and not quit before you complete all 5 of them. Otherwise, your score will not count. Anyways, I do hope that this video was helpful to you in fighting this boss. If you want more guides like this or some more Nikke content, please tell me so in the comments below and what you want to be in a future video. Anyways, a subscription also would be greatly appreciated. Anyways, I'm Wild Neptune. Been a good one. Till next time.